and I was a wreck. Like, I think of myself in there with my tears, and I'm hunched over and embarrassed. And so they really did. It helped me a ton. The only problem I had was that sometimes I felt a lot of guilt and shame if I wasn't at meetings when I should be there. And so I found that very interesting about that with what Ashley said. And, but yet I hate to say it because it helped me so much.
Are you going through life blind? This is Eyes Wide Open with Nick Thompson. On this podcast, we share knowledge and stories that build human connection while elevating stigmatized societal issues such as mental health, holistic wellness, culture, free speech, and more. All to ensure we show up in the world with our eyes wide open. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Eyes Wide Open. My guest today is Carrie Magnuson. She is a mental health advocate, mother of 3 boys, artist, and founder of Rusty Lane Lettering, and the host of the Carry On with Carrie podcast, podcast that I was also recently a guest on myself. So hi, Carrie. Welcome. How are you?
Hello. I'm great. How are you, Nick?
I'm doing just fine. It's Chicago. We had one nice day, and now it's back to cold. So
right. I think I saw that on you went for a walk, and it was beautiful. That's how it's been here too, in Sherwood Park, Alberta.
Ah, amazing. Yeah. Lucky you. Enjoy it. Enjoy it. I hope we're on the other side. I didn't see what the groundhog did today. I got to check that out.
Oh, you know what? I didn't either.
Forgot
think
about
of that.
it. Yeah.
That's
so anyone wondering when we're recording this, it's Groundhog Day.
Yes, exactly.
Evening of Groundhog or afternoon of Groundhog Day.
Mm-hmm. So we were busy, and that's a good thing, right? So
yes, exactly. Yes. Exactly. So, Carrie, my favorite question is, what did you want to be when you were a young child growing up, and how did that change, and what do you do now?
All right. Oh, wow. Good question. And okay, so when I was a kid, I've always, I guess I got the attention from my parents. I like to be funny, and I dance around and make silly jokes, and just, I'm like that. And so I always wanted to be an actress, of course. Like that's the most, typical answer probably.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole point of this question is I think it's interesting to see how everybody had these big lavish dreams as you were a kid until you learned how the world really worked for better or worse. And then it, kind of threw you on a different path over time.
Absolutely. Yeah, most definitely. It throws you on so many different loops. It's like, where was that? So I love that question. I also was going to live in Paris or Hawaii, but that didn't happen. I've been to Hawaii now, and I can say I've done that. But now for my life, I'm a mom of 3, like you said. I have 3 sons. They're all grown up, and I have 2 grandsons. I was, and I'm an artist, like you said. I run a facility here in Edmonton. I'm just me, and I'm really, really excited. And thank you so much for inviting me onto the show. I listened to your podcast just before this with Ashley Love Richards. Should I keep going, or are you wanting me to just answer the other question?
No. Keep going.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. No, don't worry. No, just
okay.
This is just a conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, that's used to be called Conversations with Nick Thompson before I renamed it Eyes Wide Open. I just like talking to people, getting to know them, and I'm like, why am I doing this? I ask myself that a lot because I think, well, now I'm hijacking, but that's okay. I think sometimes I think it's happened to a lot of people. We get so kind of stuck in our routine and stuck in the moment. And, you end up doing things that aren't really suiting you. And so I've been, very busy lately with a lot of things going on, a lot of heavy stuff happening. And I'm kind of in this place where I'm like reevaluating, why do I do the things that I do? Because I'm like, recently, I mean, it's been a few months now, started a new job that is very time consuming, obviously, and draining, and it takes a lot of time, right? And then I've got the podcast, which I do myself, and I've got some other things going on with UCAN Foundation, which is a whole nother several hours a week. Yeah, and
quite a lot of work.
And so
sure,
it is, and I'm like, I find myself working on stuff until 9-10 o'clock almost every day. I'm exhausted all the time, and so I'm like reevaluating. I'm like, what do I like? Why am I doing this podcast? And I like it. Like I like doing it. And listening to yours, and you talk about how you just want to hear people's like authentic journeys with mental health. And I'm like, okay, like that's the whole point of this show. And you know, we do mental health. We talk about a lot of stuff, but it really is that like giving people a platform to tell their story, to share their knowledge, to share their expertise,
Mm-hmm.
so that we can all learn from each other, because there's so much to learn from each other. I would say much more from each other than you can from anything else. So I want to
Absolutely.
thank you for the work you're doing, was my point on that. And
Thank you so much.
you know, it
That's
was a
so
little
kind.
reminder of why I do this. Yeah.
Right, right. And that's why, like, even I talked about it with you on my podcast about how supportive so far the community has been. And it's funny, it's almost like I put that out there and then I got a negative comment on something I
Mm,
posted on somebody else's page. And I was like, nope, just delete. And it actually
yeah.
looks like the page deleted the comment themselves, because that's what that positivity in the community, when they
Hmm.
realize that, what's the point of these comments, right?
Yeah.
But yes, thank
I
you,
think
and
I,
I love what you're doing too. I love it.
well, thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. So you, back to you, where do we leave off? You're a grandmother of two grandkids,
Yes.
and then you also started your own business. So how did you pick up somewhere around there where you where you
Okay.
left off on your journey
Okay.
through life?
Yeah. So my journey through life, I've worn many hats. I was a um, hairdresser to start off with for quite a
Mm.
long time, 20 years. I had my own salon for a bit. That failed and I felt like a failure, but now I know that's
Oh,
just it's a learning experience, and it's taught me so much about things moving forward, right? I taught
yeah.
hairdressing for a while, and then I decided I'd had enough of that whole industry, and I decided to go back to school and train to become a heavy equipment operator.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, so I ran the loader
Big
up north.
shift.
Big shift, yes. But again, it came down to money. Unfortunately, that's what things come down to. And
Yeah.
especially in Alberta, we have the oil sands and we have, the oil and gas industry. So I was able to get a really great job up north in Grand Cache, and I was a loader
Mm.
operator up there. So, anyways, it's fast forward. Right now, I'm kind of more in that realm of things, and managing a facility right now. But
Mm.
my lettering is what I really have the passion for. My art. I've always been a very creative person. So to, like you said, the shift from going
Yeah.
from a hairdresser to heavy equipment, and all of a sudden you're in all this solitude. You're by yourself in a cab, and all you've got is your mind to think, and it's a dangerous place for some people to be. So yeah. Anyways, I let my stresses go with my art, and I sit and I listen
Yeah.
to good music, and I hope the sun is shining. And if it's not, that's okay too. But yeah, it gives me happiness. So, but when I'm not feeling good, I can't create. So
I
that's
know
kind
that
of the
feeling.
last year I've been through, and it kind of went
Uh,
down a little bit, but it's going to come back, and it always does. So
yeah.
yeah.
That's the thing with creativity. It always comes back, but I find too, it creeps back in when you are settled, like mentally, or when you're free of like draining thoughts that are poor, or things that are pulling you in different direction. And you know, I saw this meme the other day that really resonated with me, because I've been feeling, I know I shared this a little bit before we started, but like been feeling like go go go, or I guess I shared this while we were recording. I feel like I'm go 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 so much lately that
Hmm.
my creativity is gone, and that's a huge outlet of mine for you know, my wellness. So so I saw a meme that says creative people need a lot of time to sit around and do nothing to be creative. And I think that's so
Right.
true. And
Hmm.
that's part of like the productivity conversation. But I think for creative people, that like sit around and do nothing time is part of the productivity.
Absolutely, yes. And I
Yeah.
keep saying absolutely. That's my word of the day. um, yeah, and then it's so true, because I have to sit and I have to almost sit in it, and then I can, like, if somebody says just draw this, I mean, sometimes yeah I can, but I have to be in a space that's,
Hmm.
yeah, I'm relaxed. And that's part of actually the last journey I've had. I became sober just over 2 years ago. November 13th, 2021
Congratulations.
thank you, yeah, was my sober date. or is my sober date. And it's a lot harder than I thought it would be. I don't want to drink or anything. It's just that, oh boy, now I have to deal with my emotions. And so that's where the art came
Jeez.
up again with me, right? When I first got sober, that was a really good outlet for me. But this year, it's like the second year, oh shit, this is real. Like I'm actually not
Yeah.
drinking anymore.
Oh, wow.
And all the feelings come up and all the things. And I'm empty nesting now because my kids are growing up, and it's just been one of those years. And so yeah, like you said, and with my job, I'm super busy. I have a full-time job. I'm doing the podcast as well. I love
Hmm.
doing it. So I guess my creativity has come out in the podcast, and
Comes out
I
in
kind of
different ways.
yeah. So it
Yeah.
comes out in different ways. Somehow I have to express myself. So which is
Yeah.
partly why I started the podcast, because my voice, when I get stressed or depressed, or I'm rhyming now, um, my throat like blocks, and I feel like I have a
Oh,
lump in my
mine does
throat.
that too. I have
Yeah,
it right now. I feel like I sound very raspy, and
right.
it's like a ball of stress sitting like right here.
Sitting right
Yeah.
here. You
Yeah.
need to tap it.
Is that what works?
Yeah, just concentrate on it, tap it,
So I'll
try
do
to
this
get,
together.
yeah. I'm gonna, anyways. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
something, and using your podcast as a voice, right? Like this
Hmm.
is where I can make a difference. I
Yeah.
didn't I did attend AA, so I listened to this. I go back to what we were
Oh
talking
my
about your
gosh.
podcast, and
Yeah.
it's hard for me to. It's such a touchy subject because I love a lot of the people from when I was in AA, but
Hmm.
I have kind of taken a step back and listening to Ashley Love Richards'
Who also
podcast with you.
participated in AA. If you haven't listened to that episode, it's was that last 2 weeks ago now, a couple
Yeah,
weeks ago. I don't know when this is coming out in the next 2 weeks, so
right.
it could be yeah. It's a recent episode, last four
Yes.
episodes, but yeah, in that she shared her sobriety journey. And all the ups and downs that she had on it, and her
Hmm.
experience in AA was actually something that ended up negatively impacting her sobriety journey, which is interesting because that's not what you expect. But do you mind me asking you,
Hmm.
what was your moment where you were making that decision to go sober?
Well, so I started my drinking career kind of after.
I'm sorry, I've never heard it called that before. That's
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah, I started that just after my divorce when I had twins. They're now 21. So at 2 years old, the father and I, their father, the father,
The
that's how I
father.
refer to him. Sorry, that sounds so bad. Their dad and I separated, and it was a seriously stressful time for me. And it was
I
just a
bet.
slow progression. So I think probably COVID really exacerbated that. I mean, you
Oh,
could
this. Oh,
order
yeah. I guess that was
alcohol
2 years
online.
ago. I know.
It
Well,
came to
we've
your
been able to
door.
do that in Chicago for a while, but all we do here is drink. So it's like
Right.
we drink with everything in Chicago:
That's
grocery
kind of how it is
stores,
here.
movies. Yeah.
Yeah. But we don't have alcohol in our grocery stores like you guys do down there.
Well, it's not everywhere. It's like
No?
certain
Okay.
places. Yeah, it's like
Okay.
a state by state. There's actually states in this country where you can't even buy like hard liquor in a grocery store. I was just in Florida with some of my buddies for we went down there to watch WWE, which we just go every year,
Hmm.
and we went to the store and all you could get was like beer and wine, and they had a separate liquor store next door where you could go
Okay.
get liquor. So
Right.
it is state by state. And then you think about here, I can literally go to the Whole Foods and get a mimosa while I grocery shop.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Here, I
Yeah.
mean, I say that we can't, but there's literally a liquor store on every corner in every strip
Mm.
mall. It's very accessible, and it's a tough thing to drop. So but yeah, so what happened? It wasn't even that dramatic. Then I went to a friend's house. There was about five of us girls, 4 or 5 girls. We were going to watch my friend's brother is on Hallmark movies. So we were going to watch a
Mm.
Christmas Hallmark movie, have a few drinks, and have fun. And of course, I was prepared. I bought 4 bottles of red wine because that was my drink. And I brought 2 of them in. And I realized as people came in, like one girl brought a cooler, another one brought a half a bottle of wine. The other one's like, I don't drink. And here I am, prepared to hunker down because that's just what I was getting used to doing. And so I felt really good about myself. I left around 9:30. I only had maybe a half a bottle of wine. So I was super
Hmm.
proud of myself. Like, wow, you did that. I go home
Wow.
and I proceeded to drink the rest of the bottles.
Yeah.
And so yeah,
All four? Did you drink all four?
yeah, yeah,
Oh
I
wow.
stayed late.
That's a
I built up a huge tolerance, and it would be in a short amount of time, and that's what happens is you can't. It's almost like you can't. I just didn't know where the stop button was, and it's
right.
embarrassing to admit it, but it's just it's I've just
But
come
it's
to
so
realize it's who I
relatable.
am.
There's so many people that have that, or
Hmm.
excuse me, there's so many people right now that are going to listen to this and be like, oh my God, I don't know the pause button. So it's something you shouldn't be embarrassed about. It's something that's part of you and shaped who you are.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, you're right, and thank you for that. And I need to remind myself of that, and that's where the ego part comes in and all that stuff. But I, yeah, I just woke up that morning, and I was supposed to do my mom's hair that morning at 11,
Hmm.
but I woke up and I had this because every morning at this point I'm waking up with this feeling of doom, like this impending
Mm-hmm.
doom, and I just can't get rid of that heaviness in my chest, the guilt. It comes with guilt. It comes with shame because I haven't dealt with anything because I'm masking it with
Yeah.
alcohol. And, anyways, I wake up and I phoned my mom and I said, Mom, like I got on my phone and I just looked up where the closest AA meeting was. And it happened to be on a Saturday morning. And it was a great group of people, very
Hmm.
supportive. And I was
So
lucky to
you went
walk into
that
that room.
day.
I went that
You
day.
went.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
you you had just woken up and didn't want to live like that anymore.
exactly. You know, I was
Wow.
I was a functioning alcoholic, I guess you could say. I would go to work every day, and come. It would be when I got home. You know, like
Yeah.
I said, a liquor store on every corner. So you're driving home and you're saying, I don't need that, because you'd wake up in the morning and say, not tonight. I'm not going to drink
Yeah.
tonight. And then you get down the road and you're like, just a bottle, but maybe I'll pick up
Yeah.
two. And I didn't drink 4 bottles a night, by the way, but I did, like, I'd sip and I'd watch my show or I'd do my art. And I thought I was so creative when I was drunk,
Yeah.
when I was drinking. But I look back at some of that work, I'm
Liquid
like, ah,
courage, liquid pride. Yeah.
yeah,
They're all a thing.
yeah. Those are
Yeah.
like, then you put your, what is it? The thick glasses on or whatever. Anyways, I don't know what I'm saying there, but yeah. So that's kind of where my story started with alcohol, or ended with alcohol, I should say. And it's still happening. It's still a work in progress, and I'm learning how to deal with my emotions now. So that's
Yeah.
that's the tricky
So
part.
what were those first couple days like? If that was such a so here's the other piece of it too.
Hmm.
And I think this might be so I think a lot of us are functioning alcoholics. I don't think that is something that is unique to certain people. I think COVID made that for a lot of people too,
Yep.
amplified that. But
Hmm.
it's the habit part of it too, right? And
Oh yeah.
there's the physical stuff going on in your body that makes you want more, and there's those types of things. But I think it's just like the habit. I know for myself, like during the week, if I Monday, if I'm like F it, it's like already gone. Like I'm
Hmm.
I'm like I'm already like I'm having a glass of wine. It's 8 o'clock at night. It is what it is. And then it's usually when I can like stack a couple days together where I'm
Right.
like, okay, here's some momentum. I can do this week. And it's more just like taking the edge off. You know,
Exactly.
I don't I don't like when if I have a some wine at night, I don't do it to get trashed. I do
Hmm.
it to like take the edge off after a stressful day, right?
Right. Yes.
And so it's very easy to see how that becomes habitual. And I think even the habit part, like when you would get home from
Hmm.
work,
Well,
I'm
yeah,
sure
that's the
the
first thing I would do. I'm like, oh, this is good. I'm home. I can, I don't have to worry about the day anymore. I can just open my bottle of wine and sip and cook. I did love to cook when I was drinking. I've kind of, I think because it's a trigger at first, I'd like, I wanted to have a drink of wine while I was sipping my wine and cooking my meals and stuff.
Right.
And it's all those little triggers though that really like you have to, with any habit, like you said,
Mm.
you got to get out of that routine. You have to change your routine around and do something that is healthier. And sometimes that's, it's hard to find, but I did find a really good group of women that I wound up connecting with and healing and learning how to
Mm.
meditate and all those, those woo woo things. And
Yeah.
it's really helped me. And I've met a lot of, so that kind of is more the path I took. I went to AA for the first year. It was very helpful,
Okay.
but I
How
also
often
didn't,
did you go?
I probably went when the very first I went every day because that's what they tell you. Go every day.
Yeah.
And
Accountability.
yes, and I had to because, and I was a wreck. Like I think of myself in there with my tears and I'm hunched over and embarrassed. And
Mm.
so they really did. It helped me a ton. Um, the only problem I had was that sometimes I felt a lot of guilt and shame if I wasn't at meetings when I should be there. And so I found that very interesting about that with what Ashley said. And, but yet I hate to say it because it helped me so much. My sponsor was amazing. Like I can't imagine not have going through it
Yeah.
with her, but can't see myself being a sponsor. I can't,
Yeah.
I'm trying to sponsor myself still. I'm trying to, like, I don't have the
Right.
right to tell somebody, oh, this is how you should do things. I just don't
Right.
see it that way for myself. So giving
Well, I
back
think
is the
that's fair.
podcast.
And yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's totally fair. And that's a healthy outlet that works for you.
Hmm.
And, you know, Ashley's perspective is one person's perspective. I think everybody has their own experiences with these things, right?
Yes.
And you found a moment in time that it worked for you
Hmm.
and you needed it. And I think that's okay. I think that's okay with everything. And then when it doesn't suit you anymore, it doesn't serve you, which is what I was saying earlier. Like I've got to assess the things that are still serving me and the
Yeah.
things that are not. And that's everything in my life too.
Hmm.
So I think it's just, that's fine. Like that's okay. And then to
Right.
recognize the things that do and don't serve you, like it wouldn't serve you to sponsor someone when you're trying to figure your own sponsorship out, right?
Right. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's just,
What?
there's so many ways to give back. And like
Yes.
you said, which way makes, what fills your cup in order, like, you have to fill your own cup up doing something you love before you can help somebody else.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. I
yeah.
say that all the time.
Hmm.
Let it overflow and then pour a little bit into someone else's.
And so do you practice that?
Um, it's one of those things that I would say I can say and I can understand, but do I
Hmm.
always practice that? No.
Right.
I tend to, I tend to, as I was saying before we started, because I was about 10 minutes late to recording, I always like take on more than I can do and think I'm capable of more than I am from like a
Hmm.
timing perspective. Like
Right.
I know if I set my mind to something, I can do anything that
Hmm.
I want to do. Like I'm not going to like learn to do things I don't want to do. But what I find myself doing is thinking that I have more time than I do,
Hmm.
or that I can do more than I can, or even I should sometimes. And that, you know, it's a blessing and a curse, but I don't always practice that, to be honest.
I can totally relate with that. In fact, you saying you were 10 minutes late, I'm like, oh, good, somebody else is. Like, it's actually a relief for me. I have
Oh
no,
my God.
I remember
Me
going to
too.
Costa Rica and we did sign up for excursions and stuff. And it would be set for, say, 1 o'clock in the afternoon to go on a boat.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like 1:10, 1:20. 2:10. I'm like, where are these guys? And they're like, it's Tico time. I don't know what that means, but they live by, the experience and whatever. And that taught you. And back then I drank too, so I didn't care.
I know, right?
But yeah, it's so thank you. Because I think that's actually a really good point. And I've heard of something. I don't know if you've heard of time dysmorphia. Now, I don't know if this is just another buzzword or something like that, but there's
Let's look it
actually,
up.
yeah.
While you keep going, I'll look it
Okay.
up real quick.
Yeah. Because I've always driven my family crazy as far as I think that I'm going to be on time. It doesn't matter if I get up at 5:30 in the morning to be somewhere for 9. I think then I'm like, oh, I have all this time. I have so much time to kill. I can do like take on the world, and then I'm still late for what I'm
Yep.
supposed to be at. And that's just, and I know it drives other people crazy, but again, I'm going to use the excuse that I have time dysmorphia or
It's
ADHD, one or the other.
yeah. Well, that they're tied actually. When I googled that, they're tied
Are
together.
they?
So this is there's no site. So this is interesting. I think it is a little.
Yeah, like I don't know
It's
if it's
yeah.
scientifically.
Dyschronometria. Dyschronometria is the condition of a dysfunction in an individual that cannot accurately estimate the amount of time that has passed. They have a distorted time of perception. So I don't know if I have that. I think it's
Mhm.
more of so like I had a grooming appointment at the top of the hour for my dog,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And then I I was actually going to leave on time, and
Hmm.
then I got a call, and I took the call, and then all of a sudden my timing was thrown off by about 10 minutes, and I should have taken the call on the go, and then I had to order an Uber to get my dog to the groomer, and then the Uber got caught up in some construction and took like 7 minutes to get here when it was supposed to take two,
Right. Yep.
and then that was behind, and then I walked back because it's really a 15-minute walk, 20
Hmm.
with the dog because he's all over the place. And then I'm like, okay, well, I'm walking back. I'm just walking in my building, the time we're set to record. And I'm
Yep.
like, I haven't set up my camera. I haven't set up my mic. I have to use the restroom, like all of this stuff. And I'm like,
Mhm.
man, but it just felt like I could, when we push this back a half hour, it just felt like it was going to be fine. And the reality
Yeah.
is that was giving me 15 minutes to walk home because that's the
Hmm.
amount of time it takes, but no time to like set or get in the mindset or go to the restroom or any of that stuff. And
Right.
that's where I do it. Like I just go back to back to back. Like
Hmm.
nothing else is going to come up and my plan's just going to go according to plan.
Right. And that's probably more what I am. I just I like to use well, this is a thing. This is why I'm late.
Yeah.
But
Like
no,
no
it's
accountability
no
for like
accountability at
anything
all.
else
No.
interrupting our worldview.
Right. Exactly. It's all about me. But yeah, I love how it's true. You're late and every roadblock comes in your way. And I've learned to, instead of looking at it like, oh, of course, or oh, why is this happening right now? It's just like, well, it is. And maybe there's a reason why it's happening right now. And
Yeah.
maybe I'm not meant to be there when I'm there. Maybe I'm going to meet somebody. Maybe,
Maybe
you
we
just
should
don't
be
know.
living in the moment more. Maybe that's the thing there.
Exactly. Yep.
I had that's another thing I do struggle with. I do struggle a lot with being in the moment,
Hmm.
but not necessarily in the way that I think people might think about that. Like when people think living in the moment, it's like being present, right? Not checking your phone. Like I'm pretty good at that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
What I'm not good at is like if I have something coming up, if I have a meeting, if I have a podcast recording, if I have a phone call,
Hmm.
like I'm thinking more about that than taking the time that I have now to like get in the mindset, do something creative. And it just kind of like, it has this like sense of dread almost. And not dread maybe isn't the right word, but it's just like, oh, I've got this call or I've got this podcast recording at 12:30. And, I'm
Hmm.
thinking about all this stuff like that. And that's where I'm not good at being in the moment. But if I'm like with people, like right now, I'm hearing this conversation with you, like I'm present in this conversation. I'm not thinking about the other things. But once I get off this recording with you, I'm going to be thinking about the thing I have to do
Switch.
later tonight.
Yeah.
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 That's exactly. I was actually thinking that it's funny you said that because that's what I was thinking every time I'm on a podcast, and I think that's why I love doing it so much is because I am so much in my head and my mind. I'm always thinking about the same thing, the next thing. What can I do?
Mm-hmm.
It's just nonstop. But yeah, this keeps me in the present, and that's why I love it so much. And that's I think part of getting rid of that lump in your throat.
Yeah.
It's that time because you're in the present, you're practicing self care, which we all forget to do. Because we
All
all,
forget to
I know
do.
I've heard you say before, self care. It's like again, self care is so different for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like sometimes how it's labeled as far as you have to, go to the spa and spend a ton of
Yeah.
money or, um, I don't know. There's so many
Oh, I
things, right?
know.
Yeah.
And that is for some people, that's how they relax. And that's okay.
And
Like
that's
I know
fine.
from
Yep.
right. For me, it's like tonight I'm looking and I'm like, okay, I have to edit my podcast. So I'm looking for like, so it's Friday, right? I'm looking at
Yes.
Saturday and Sunday, and I'm like, I can have 2 days where I don't have anything I have to do.
Mm-hmm.
If I can get my podcast for next week edited, all the graphics done, and then I'm like, well, then I'm going to be working till 10 o'clock again tonight. And it's
Yep.
like, is it better to like cram it today so I have 2 days, but I'm exhausted for those 2 days, or is it better to spread it out?
Yeah.
I just don't know. It's like, it's your thing, but I do think like yesterday, which I posted about, like getting in some outside walks is
Mm-hmm.
so important to me. It's where I
Mm-hmm.
think, it's where I catch up on the news because I'm like a news junkie. It's where I start to really get clarity
Mm-hmm.
on what I need to do, whether it be for work, whether it be for the show, whether it be for UCAN or
Mm-hmm.
anything else.
Yeah,
And I
I
don't
I
think we
love
take that
walks.
time.
We
Yeah.
don't. And sometimes all it takes is going down to the mailbox, and like here we have to our mail doesn't come right to our door. We have to go to the mailbox, and it's usually a little bit of a walk. And even just that, just getting
Mm,
yourself, changing your environment, looking around, smelling the air, feeling the cold, especially here we get that a lot. Sometimes I'll even go outside and stick my feet in the snow because the whole reset
cold.
yourself with a
Yeah.
cold bath. I still don't have that. I have not done that yet. I'm not
Oh, you have to
sure.
try
Yeah.
cold showers. Okay.
Okay. Try a cold
I've been
shower.
doing cold showers since April-ish last year, March or April.
Yep.
Now, I don't do them every day because I found that if I shower at night
Hmm.
too late and I do it, it keeps me up longer because it's a dopamine release, right? And
Okay.
dopamine is I had a neuroscientist on my show who explained all of this stuff to me, which is shortly around the time I started cold showering.
Okay.
So what cold showering does, there's lots of health benefits, but what it does for your mind is it gives you a release of dopamine that is the happiness or the accomplishment chemical in our brain. So when you
Okay.
go on social media or you get that's giving you little spikes of dopamine, which is raising your baseline.
Right.
What cold showers do is give you a more regulated dopamine release that lasts longer because you're accomplishing something within your body, staying in there longer. So what I do is I shower, I wash all my stuff, and then I flip it cold, right?
Hmm.
And
Right.
this time of year, it gets cold. Like
Yeah.
it's not as
There's no
freezing
problem.
cold in the summer. It's still cold enough. But
Yeah.
the first time I did it, I probably lasted 10 or 15 seconds and I count. So that's the
Okay.
other thing I do. I count.
So what do you have to
And
count to?
so I'm
Is
up
there a
to about
recommended?
60. I've been up to, oh, so you can start with 10 or 15 seconds. And then
Okay.
every day, I just increase it as much as I could. I'm
Right.
like, once I get to that point, sometimes it's 1 second, sometimes it's 3 seconds, sometimes it's another 20 seconds. It
Okay.
depends. I had gotten myself up to 2 minutes, right?
Hmm.
120 seconds. Now I can do that, but I'm down. It's so cold now. It's winter. I'm like down to a
Yeah.
minute.
Hmm.
And
That's still
that's
pretty
kind of,
impressive, I have to say.
it is.
I
But,
don't know. Yeah.
now I turn it hot again because it's
Okay.
just cold. So at
Hmm.
the end of the cold, I turn it hot and then I get out. So,
Okay. And
but
you do notice a big difference then?
I do. I love it. When I do it, when I shower in the morning, I love it. It is
Yeah.
the best, like, let's go
Boom, let's
thing.
go.
And it's like making your bed. You get a
Hmm.
little release because you've accomplished something first thing in the morning.
Right.
So I recommend it. I think you should just flip it cold next shower you
Okay,
take.
I'm gonna do it.
Flip it
I'll take the
cold,
plunge.
count to 10 Mississippi.
Okay,
Yeah.
I can do it.
And
Yeah,
then,
I know even in the summer here because I don't have air conditioning, and when it gets super super hot,
wow.
even then sometimes I have a hard time turning the cold on. But I just have to try it. My son was doing that for a long time, and he swore by it, and I don't know, I'm
Mm.
stubborn I guess, but I'm gonna have to
It's
try it
not
for sure.
appealing to think about, but once you
No.
do it, it's easier to keep doing it, I
Mhm.
think.
Yeah, oh, for sure. And I think it's those little things that if you that's why I love these conversations because, you know, your perspective on that just changed my mind on wanting to have a cold shower.
Well, you'll
And
have to let me know when you try it
yeah,
the first time.
I will for sure. And I think it's all those little hints, especially because now I'm on the road to I need to figure out how to heal from the years and years of depression and anxiety and PTSD. And I've gone through EMDR, and we talked about the fact that I'm in RTMS, which is
Mm-hmm.
radio transcranial magnetic stimulation. I always have to think of it.
Yes.
Yes, and
Which
that
I
you had
also
taken.
did. Yeah,
Yeah,
I also did
taken.
that.
Yeah. And I just
Yeah.
found even our conversation when we talked about that was interesting because it's so different for everybody. And it's been, I guess the statistics, I mean, don't quote me on this, but a third of the people it works for, a third of the
Mm-hmm.
people it can work for a period of time.
Yep.
And then a third it doesn't work for.
Yep.
And I'm still in the middle of it. And I'm working on my last week was horrible. It was shit. Excuse my
Mm.
language, but it was horrible.
Oh.
And they changed my meds. They took me off one, and it was like overnight they did that. I'm tired every night after, and it
Mm.
hurts. It's really hurting me. And some people say it hurts them. Some people say it doesn't.
Yeah.
But I can actually feel it in my jaw. Like,
Really?
yeah, I can feel my, yeah. Anyways,
Oh, ooh,
I know
that would bother
but
me.
it's still like, I don't want to scare anybody from it because it's not that bad. I'm saying I still do it, and
It's
it's,
yeah, it can
yeah,
be discomforting. Like I got headaches for the first few days.
yeah.
Like in my eye, like on the side they were
Yes, right
tapping,
here.
it was like right in my eye. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
And it
So,
wasn't like debilitating. Like I used to have migraines regularly. It wasn't
oh, okay.
debilitating, but it was kind of like there. Just felt
Hmm.
like someone was actually on the inside of my eye, just tapping
Yeah.
for
And
like
I
the
never
next
get
day.
headaches, so
Yeah.
it was harder for me to handle. Like, I've just been
Mm.
really lucky that way. Very rarely, unless every time I need a new prescription, I start getting a bit
Oh
of a
yeah,
headache. But,
yeah.
and that's how I know
It's a
it's time to
tell.
switch.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
So
not so, yeah, so that was a bit tough to get used to.
yeah, well, I would encourage you to stick with it.
Hmm.
It took me several weeks before I feel like I started noticing that things were changing a little bit for
Okay.
me. But yeah, I think it might be worth it if you happen to be in that like 2/3 that it has a positive influence on.
Yeah, and I'm lucky enough that Alberta Health Services, where I'm from, I mean, I say lucky enough, it's kind of ironic, but I wound up on having a bit of a breakdown in May of last year. And
Mm.
it's just, like I said, it's been that year of just so many changes. And I wound up going to a day program in Alberta Hospital, which is they do addictions. They do. It's just for anybody going through any kind of mental health. It's a day program. You get to go in. They teach you classes, all these things. And so I was really bad, and it was in a really bad place. And they suggested that I go to TMS. So they referred me to this program, and it's
Mm.
all paid for. So I didn't have to pay out of pocket, and
Ah,
that's the problem, I guess, where I'm trying to get at is my mental health advocacy comes in the perspective that, you know, it's a social problem.
responsibility.
It's a
Yeah.
social responsibility. We need to realize that a lot of people do suffer economically because of mental health. A lot of people lose their jobs because, it's just not understood. You might have sick days where you just cannot get out of bed. You can't make it
Yeah.
to work.
I've had those.
Yeah, and some people just don't understand that, and I get it, and I'm glad they don't, for their sakes.
Me
They've
too.
never had to deal with it, maybe, but anyways, I'm rambling on here, but for me, the mental health advocacy part of it, if I can get a word out there to anybody and help just one person, um, I know that it's made a difference. I know that,
Yeah.
like, I just had to do something, and if we can help fund these programs, help, and it doesn't even have to be like those big major things. It's just one little thing at a time, one little thing that you can do
Progress.
to, yeah, like share, yes, share something, like, say you listen to a podcast, share it. If it really affected you and it affected you, it may affect somebody else. It may help
Hmm.
them. And it's those little things, volunteering, anything like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I've rambled on lots.
Yeah. No, no,
Yeah.
no. It's you're absolutely right. I could not agree more. I think I like to share a lot of stuff I see on social media when it resonates with me, or I'll comment on it sometimes if it does too, because the amount of time someone DMs me or I meet someone and they're like, you doing X really helped me here. And it's like, it's the simplest thing that I never would have thought,
Mm-hmm.
never would have thought made any difference. Right. So
Right.
it is. And it's building that community, which I think is so important.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to, I don't want to pry too much into making you or asking you to say things that you didn't want to say. But
Okay.
if it was last May,
Mm-hmm.
was that was 6 months after you started your sobriety, or was that,
So
am I
November,
doing my math wrong?
yeah,
24. So I was
November,
22.
I
So,
was over 2 years
okay.
sober at that. Wait, no,
Okay.
I was a year and a half sober.
Okay.
November
So
2021 is when I quit drinking.
what, okay. You had alluded to, realizing that your drinking was suppressing, things. Like what was going on mentally for you, during your first, I guess all of your sobriety, but like what was bubbling up mentally for you when you first started your sobriety journey that kind of sent you on a path of recognizing these emotions and trying
Mm-hmm.
to heal from them?
There's so much going on. And I mean, the first year, like I said, it was almost, and I think they call it like the pink cloud, where you are living on this like planet. I remember going for walks and it's like, oh my God, everything's so clear. Like I'm sober and this is
Mm,
amazing. And I was in such a great place and I met all these amazing people. And then, work gets harder. I took on a different position there with more responsibilities. And because I do have depression, I do have anxiety, it just, you know,
yeah.
sleep was a problem, worrying about my position and what I was doing. And then because I was sober, I couldn't go home and drink after to deal with that. So all those things that I had a few friendships, relationships that just seemed to go a little bit different. It wasn't what I expected. And that feeling of hurt and not being good enough and all the things that kind of came back to me as a kid. And
Mm,
um, then I went into a psychiatrist appointment and they prescribed me because they said I have ADHD, which honestly, I think everybody has a bit, but I'm not downplaying ADHD at all.
yeah.
And I do think I do. I mean, but I've controlled it for this many years.
Right.
Anyway, they put me on a drug called Vyvanse, and it's a methamphetamine, and it just and I was like, I'm gonna give this a good try. I'm gonna, and at
Yeah.
first you're like, oh, I'm wow, like, and I'm just like, blah, blah, blah. And but I hated the feeling because I drink coffee. I don't need any more
I do too.
stimulation. I'm a coffee drinker, and it was just a deadly combination. And I literally felt like I was losing my mind. It was.
Oh,
I
wow.
finally went off of it. I didn't get a lot of support from the psychiatrist. And again, it's another disappointment from somebody you're supposed to trust and that should be looking after you,
What was
after
their
the fact.
what was the non-support? Did they want you to stay on it?
They wanted me to
That's like
stay on it.
ego?
Well, the
It's like
nurse was
ego.
away. Yeah, the nurse was away. She was on holidays. And I said, well, what do I
Mm,
do? I phoned in a panic. Like, should I stop? Like, should I stop now? I'm sorry, she's on holidays for a week. She's not back until this time. And I said, well, can I talk to the doctor, please? Like, can somebody? And nothing. I wasn't put through to anybody.
jeez.
I was put aside. And at this point, keep in mind, like I'm in full on, like I already have anxiety. So you add that.
Well, I bet that increases your anxiety more than it,
Hmm.
yeah.
And it threw me for a loop. Like it just,
Mm,
that's a perfect example of, maybe how medication is wonderful sometimes, but it can also, people don't understand the effects of trying to get used to a medication. Or,
takes time.
yeah, like I was on a medication when I was young, and it's on my list of medications that, I'm allergic to it because it gives me
Yeah.
suicidal thoughts. And it's, when they say on those commercials, may cause suicidal thoughts. Yeah, it actually could.
Yeah.
It
I
does.
had I had an experience in my 20s. I struggled. I tried several antidepressants
Hmm.
after finally like talking about it, which was something that I'd never done. I didn't even know that I was suffering from depression since I was a young kid until my probably late teens, mid teens.
Hmm.
And then it was like shame took over for a number of years before I was even able to like say something. I mean, I remember hiding that I was seeing a therapist in my early 20s from like
Mm-hmm.
everyone. It was so,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. You
And
didn't
just,
tell
and, you
anybody.
know, being a man,
Mm-hmm.
it's a little bit different, and I'm not downplaying what it's like for anyone, but at least for me as a man, it was a little bit different. And,
Well, yeah, you don't talk
um,
about your feelings like that. You don't tell people when things like that are going on.
right.
Yeah.
Right. And I had one antidepressant, and it was my third one that I had tried.
Mm-hmm.
And none of them were like working the way I expected them to work. So I just kept, there's no science. There's not, well, they're getting better with it now, actually. There's like
Yeah.
testing you can do to see if you need SSRIs, SNRIs, like which one's going to work with your blood type best, all of that stuff now. But back
Mm-hmm.
then it was trial and error. And I had one, and I just remember I was driving down the highway, and I was like, I want to just drive right off this hill, right into the streets of Woodfield parking
Oh,
lot, and
wow.
just, and I'm grateful I had the wherewithal
Mm-hmm.
to say, this is a side effect of this new medication that I've been on for a few weeks. And I immediately like called my doctor
Mm-hmm.
and was like, I need to come in. And I think it had to be like the next day I got an appointment. And even then, and I stopped taking it immediately. Even then, because it was the same path. And I remember I was like, the next day I'm driving the same way. I'm like, this is just so weird that this is what I want to do right now.
Yeah.
Because even when I've had thoughts like that, it's never been like something I thought was a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so it was so weird. So anyway, the point of that was the medications, you have to be careful with them. The side effects are real. You have to
Yep.
know the side effects so that you have awareness of them if they creep up, especially the ones that are going to cause you any suicidal thoughts or
Mm-hmm.
self-harm thoughts. So
And that
encourage
is
everyone
something
to
I'm
please
very
be,
aware of now.
yeah.
I'm very sensitive to medication. So even just switching that little bit last week really threw me for a
Mm,
loop. And I knew that something was going to happen. And I was right, and I had to ride through it, but I wound up, it wasn't a great week at all. And suicide is in my mind a lot, like it's suicide ideation. And that's
hmm.
because I'm a 3-time suicide survivor.
Oh my
Suicide
gosh.
attempt survivor. I don't know. How do you even word that? Like, anyway.
I,
Um,
I don't, I don't know. And I feel like we're in a good point where people are recognizing that that's not, just suicide in general is not a criminal act.
no.
It's like it's a suffer. It's something people suffer with. So
Yes. Yeah,
yeah,
and it was
I'm.
all around my postpartum, and when I look back, it was all to
Mm,
do with medication I was on, and I probably had a few drinks, and that's a killer
mm,
combination. So that's another reason why I wanted to quit, because you're depressing yourself more with alcohol, right? But yeah,
hmm.
so coming out of I back to the suicide and the shame in that. I mean, that's part of what I was trying to mask. I mean, I was a mom.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
was like, so, you hear people say it's a selfish act, and I can see that side of it, but it's when you're in that place, you're
It's a
not thinking.
side of it
That's
of
the
someone who's
last
never been
person.
in. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the last. Sorry,
It's.
not person. The last thing you're thinking about. You're thinking about how much better everybody would be without you. How much better they'd be able to not have to worry about what you're doing anymore. Or you wouldn't be a burden and all that stuff. And it's just your mind is twisted at that point. You're not.
Hmm.
And I don't. When I say
That's why it's an
twisted, that sounds kind
illness.
of bad too. It's just you're not yourself, obviously, right? Because
Yeah.
it's um and so talking about it more. Actually, I'm wearing a shirt. I don't even know if I can. No, it's
Uh,
from End the Stigma. I don't know if you've heard of
oh
them,
yeah.
but
Yeah. Oh yeah. I know
yeah,
them.
you can. What does it say? I just got it today. I was so excited. You can talk to me about mental health and dogs.
Ah,
So
nice,
yes,
nice.
yeah,
I wish I had mine wasn't at the groomer, so I could pick him up here.
I know. Mine are
Yeah,
downstairs
he's the
because they like to
cutest.
bark. So
Oh yeah. It's
yeah,
weird not hearing barks right now, to be honest. Mine barks every time I think he barks trying to like manifest someone at the door sometimes so he
yeah,
can get some attention.
right. I know
Yeah.
that's mine just like they're schnauzers, so
Mm.
they like to let you know they're there and protect me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah,
I'm sure they protect you.
yeah.
So I would love to hear from you how your art and ultimately, I think your podcast is art too, right? You're creating.
Mm-hmm.
How does your art help you manage your struggles? And I know we talked a little bit about how it's hard for you sometimes to be creative when you are
Mm-hmm.
struggling. But what are some of the benefits you've experienced? And first and foremost, how did you find painting and calligraphy?
I was actually on Instagram and I followed, just by chance, followed somebody that she just inspired me and she would make videos and stuff. And I'm like, oh, I need to learn how to do that. And then a coworker, she dabbled in it a bit too. And that's kind of what got me interested. And I started with that first. I've always been artistic as far as, like I said, singing and
Mm-hmm.
some form of art, but and then the watercolors came in, and I found so it keeps you in the moment. It
Yeah.
keeps you present. When I'm concentrating, it's just like the podcast. When I'm concentrating on making a card for somebody or doing a project for somebody for their wedding or whatever, it keeps me in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to be careful because then I'm a self critic too, right? So
Oh, yes.
yeah, you have to be careful with that. So that's why I love watercolors. For me, they're forgiving. It's like the flow of the water. You can see the
Mm-hmm.
colors like shining and so that it's again art therapy too is it's not so much about the the end game and what it looks like. It's about the process and how you feel through
Right.
it and what you're feeling while you're performing art. And it could be
Right.
anything, and that's what I find. I've done workshops now, and I've done a few watercolor workshops, and that's kind of what I'd like to bring to them. You turn on your meditation music, or maybe they want bright cheery music, but whatever it is, getting them out of their heads. And it's always fun. It's always everybody's
Oh,
relaxed,
yeah.
and yeah, so that's kind of what it does for me. So
I love that.
yeah.
And you have a website, or I'll make sure we put it in the show link
Oh,
too.
yeah, I have. I'm just on Instagram and
Okay.
Facebook. I don't have a website. Because I took that break and I was actually ramping up to all those things, and then I just kind of had to. And
Mm,
I judged myself for that, and I was like, nope,
I
you
know.
just you need time, and I'll come back with a vengeance.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
and I think it's important to take time too,
Hmm.
right? I took time away from my podcast last year.
Hmm.
I wasn't doing well mentally. Everything was falling. I've talked about this before, but I felt for so long with everything on the show,
Hmm.
from the moment I went there all the way up, and I mean to this day, to be honest, but everything just was like happening to me, and I wasn't an active participant in my life. And
Hmm.
one of the things that I felt I had gotten really good at before all of this was kind of being, again, in the moment, being an active participant in my life, making decisions that suited me, and decisions to not do something that didn't suit me. And then
Hmm.
I felt like I lost control of that. And I thought all the work that I had done to um, take that control of my life was gone, and it was in the control of other people and other things. And things were just happening to me, and I had
Hmm.
no control. And all I could do was react.
Right.
And it's to this day, I feel like I'm never gonna get back to where I was mentally and how I feel
Hmm.
before all of this. But taking that control, or even attempting to, or even knowing you can, so you can attempt to take control.
Hmm.
And that's so important, because we are in control of our own lives. We just
Hmm.
have to take it. We have to seize it. And even when it's hard, you got to show yourself some grace. I showed myself a lot of
I say that
grace
all the
to,
time. Show yourself
yeah,
grace. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it's hard to do
So,
sometimes, and I have to commend you on, I really can't imagine the public scrutiny that you've been under and how that would affect. That's sometimes why I think, well, there's a reason why I didn't become a rock star or an actor. It's so, people are so cruel, and they don't understand this is somebody's life that you're messing with,
partaking
really.
in,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're partaking in their life, and yeah, I know they'll say, well, you went on a reality show, and so you kind of gave up that. Well, no,
Yeah.
no, it doesn't mean, you still, I don't know. Did you know what I'm trying to say?
No,
How did you?
yes, I absolutely do.
Yeah.
So it's like, that was like in a way, that's the piece that I was built for.
Mm-hmm.
I've used to be very insecure about everything, and
Mm-hmm.
that's something else I would never talk about. But what I did through like my therapeutic journey, through my self work, I really kind of realized like, well, you know what? Like at the core, my ethos and in my heart is to do the right thing
Yeah.
and to help people, not hurt people. And so I I have this peace inside of me, like an inner peace where it's like I know I may be wrong. It doesn't mean I'm not wrong, but I
Mm-hmm.
know that if I'm doing the right thing, I have conviction about it.
Right.
And how can I be so hard on myself when I'm doing the best that I can to do the right thing?
Mm-hmm.
Because I have integrity and not everyone has integrity. It's a lot easier to not have integrity than it is to have integrity.
Oh yeah,
And
that's the
so,
easy way out.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so, like, the people, I'm not going to say it never impacted me. It
Mm-hmm.
did, but the people, the haters, like, they don't know me. And
Right.
they can think they know me and they can have this perception of me, but they don't know me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
They don't have to know me and they can have their perception and I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
And that
Yeah.
was the big thing. Like, I don't care what people think about me
Mm-hmm.
because I know I'm doing the best that I can and I know I'm trying to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's not something that you can see, then that's your decision not to see that. And
Yeah.
that
And I
doesn't mean
like
that
that.
everybody has to like you and all of that, but that was my mindset. And it
Mm-hmm.
really, like the public scrutiny. I mean, I've been saying this lately, like some of these people would hate Santa Claus if they made a reality show about Santa Claus giving kids
Exactly. Yeah.
presents on Christmas. There would be people that hate Santa,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's just it's a them thing. It's not a you thing. And
Right.
I've been for the most part good with that. What does get me a little bit sometimes is there's so many misrepresentations on purpose,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what gets me. That's where
Right.
I get frustrated because if someone wants to like talk about me and not talk to me but then misrepresent me,
Mm-hmm.
that is the part that is hard that I didn't you don't necessarily think about that. I don't think, like, I
Right.
think, oh, there people might not like me there, I might get, you might get a bad edit or something, but
Mm-hmm.
it's when people knowingly misrepresent you,
Mm-hmm.
that's where I'm like, I don't like that.
Yeah.
So
No.
that, yeah, that's
That's kind of where I would be like. I mean, there's so many things you could either dig up on me or, and that's where I found like the editing. I think if I'm a crier, so I can just imagine how they would
oh
edit me
yeah.
out. Like I would just be like, because Danielle, I mean, I know that they really played on that side of her, and I remember just feeling so much compassion for her. And but I mean, again, it's I don't know her. It's just a show. Like no offense, but I mean
Yeah.
it.
No, what they did to her, just
But that
her
was
whole mental
horrible.
health was horrific.
Yeah,
It's horrific.
yeah,
And
and I oh
the yeah, that's the thing. Like I didn't get a bad edit. I don't but our relationship was so misrepresented
mm-hmm. Yeah,
and that was hard to watch. And then a lot of people had perceptions of our relationship and that was again it didn't I was hyper focused on our relationship and trying to make it work, so I
yeah,
didn't, the last thing I needed was noise from people that didn't know us or live in our relationship.
mm-hmm.
But
Yeah,
yeah, it's hard, but at the end of the day it really doesn't matter what others think of you. It matters what you think of you. And that's
right.
why I think people need to work on themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the point of this podcast is do the works, do the work, do the research, do the self reflection so that you can go through the world with your eyes wide open. And I'm not
Mm-hmm.
perfect. I'm not perfect at it. I had a little self hate on myself on the way home here. I'm like,
Yeah,
why am I always doing this? Why am I always telling people I'm going to be late? Like I'm such
mm-hmm.
a loser, like all of that, those
Right.
kind of
Yeah, the
ways
things that you
you
would
talk
never
to
say to
yourself.
somebody else. You're just so,
Exactly.
I just can't imagine. You're such a loser.
Yeah.
Like I just can't, you know.
I actually said idiot in my
Oh
head,
well,
but
that's still
the
not very
same.
kind.
Yeah,
An
idiots are
idiot.
losers. So
You know. Yeah, that's funny. But yeah, and that's the thing about this too. And you say that sharing the story and living with your eyes wide open, absolutely. It. I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah,
that
I
happens to me
totally
all the
agree.
time.
Yeah, I had a really good point, and now it's out the window. That's okay.
God.
Yeah.
So why don't before I give you the chance to ask me anything, why don't you tell people a little bit about was the kick in the butt to start Carry On with Carrie, which is your
Okay.
podcast, and what your purpose with that podcast and your goal is. I know to help people, but
Yeah.
if you have anything else that you're looking to accomplish.
Yeah. Thank you for asking me that. And so I started the podcast back in May. I'm on your episode
38.
38, which I just published at 12:30 in the morning last night, and learning a new program. Anyways, the reason I started it, for years I've wanted to do something to help with mental health because I've struggled with it myself. And I thought about it for about a year, I guess. And it would just like pop into my mind. I'm like, I wonder what it'd be like to do a podcast. And I don't know, oftentimes, like, your darkest times, you come out with light and you start to see something that can give you some hope. And that's what the podcast was for me. And getting, again, like I said, getting my voice out there, getting rid of the lump in my throat. And what do I hope to accomplish from it is exactly helping people, yes, but letting other people have a voice as well, and giving space to know that your story, you might think, oh, I'm just whoever. I'm just Carrie. I'm sitting in my house in Sherwood Park and nobody knows me. Nobody cares. Well, so what? Like you just said, it kind of goes back to what you were just saying. Um, it, Everybody does care. And then that's the point I guess I'm trying to make is I care that, you went through that. I care that um, there are options for you. And that's what makes me want to do this. There's, maybe EMDR is going to be something that you'll like, maybe meditation. So like, I know you in your intro, you say that it's, I believe, or in the middle segment, you say something about all of the things that your podcast is about.
Yeah.
And, meditation and what was one of the words you used, and it totally resonated with me.
Oh my gosh. In the
I'm trying to
intro,
think
it's
now.
been a while.
Yeah. But it's just all of those different things, modalities that,
Yeah.
maybe you can't afford to get therapy because it's $250 a session, but maybe you can afford to go to a meditation group that's, only asking for a donation. Or maybe you can go to an art therapy class that's, there's just so many options. And I think that's what really got me is it's time to share. And the 2 years before that, I was learning in all of my groups and being free of alcohol and all of that stuff. It just, yeah. Long story short, or short story long.
I think it's
That's
beautiful.
Thank
And
you.
I'll tell you too, when you re-record your entrance, geez.
Yeah, I'm going to. Oh, I hate
When you
it.
re-record your intro,
Mhm.
your tagline should be "It's time to share." Just a FYI.
Okay.
Carry on with Carrie. It's time to
It's
share.
time to
I
share.
love that.
Oh, see,
Some
I
free
love.
marketing advice. I'm
Okay.
a marketer.
Yes, you're a marketer. I got to talk to you more.
So
And
yeah.
I started putting in, and now it's time to talk. That's
Oh,
kind
there.
of,
That works too.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, look at, I'm writing notes. This is what I do. And then you should see my notes everywhere. I have a book over here with notes, and then I have a book over here with notes. It's
In the
just,
same
yeah,
way.
that's how my
Got
mind
papers
works.
and my notebook all
Yeah.
right here.
Brilliant ideas, all of them.
Right. Sometimes I do go back to be like, did I have any good ideas that I forgot about? And it's always do. I always
Of
do.
course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let me
So,
let me turn it over to you. If I know you interviewed me on your show not that long ago, several weeks ago, but is there anything you want to ask me?
I guess I just want to ask you about how you have been affected by being a part of the UCAN Foundation and what that is actually doing. I know that you're working full time. I know that you've got the podcast, but that's a pretty major thing. And, the difference that you're making with, I think, government legislations, you're trying to, how has this experience been for you
Yeah.
so far?
Yeah. So it's so we're not the organization, we're a 501c3, so we can't actually like lobby for legislation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I'm hoping that they start recognizing through our awareness that there's something that needs to go on there. But the advocacy work and the awareness that it's kind of crazy. And I'll be honest, when we started it back in April of last year, I did not expect it to explode so quick. I thought it was going to be a very slow hobby almost.
Right.
Every now and then something would pop up and someone would pop in. But the influx of mental health support, the influx of legal support, the influx of cast members, we have over. Last time I looked, it was it was 100 and something.
Holy shit.
There's just
Wow.
over 100 cast members that have
Wow.
reached out.
And
We
this is across the
recently
board, like all types of different kinds of
all
reality
every
shows?
kind of show you can
Okay.
imagine,
Mm-hmm.
competition show and global, not just in the North
Okay.
America sector either. um
Interesting.
it
Hmm.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. So I guess like there's a couple things that I learned, right? One is that this is a systemic issue.
Mm-hmm.
I did not, I knew most were pretty bad. I didn't know how bad.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't expect to hear from people that they were um, false imprisoned. Like before I realized I was false imprisoned,
Yeah, you
I
didn't
heard
even
it
know it
from other
happened.
people.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, or people that have been sexually assaulted, or people that have gotten hooked on pain pills because like opioids because a producer gave them to them so they could sleep. Like stuff like that.
Yeah. And
It's
somebody
just
just told me,
insane.
because I told them you were on my show and that I'm going to be on yours. And it was a nurse actually when I was getting my TMS therapy. And she said she'd
Mm.
seen one about, I think somebody on Love Island um, came out and said that they actually, that their cups are, you can't see what's in them because
Oh yeah.
they put alcohol in them like all day. They're drinking alcohol.
Yeah. That's Love is Blind has the gold goblets too.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I
Yeah.
remember that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a thing
forgot
because
about
they
that.
want to, they say right in your contract they can misrepresent you, edit you however they want, all that stuff. But
Hmm.
I think like the other big learning I realized, and I get this every day because it's hard because and there's so many people now that are actually speaking up. It's not just me
Hmm.
going out there and being like, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening, which is good. That was the goal because
Yeah.
I don't want to do this the rest of my life. Like I wanted out of the whole reality TV world, and
Hmm.
staying in it is hurtful. It's painful hearing
Yeah.
these stories from people who have had it way worse than I have. It's hurtful, it's painful, constantly being reminded of how much this has impacted my life
Hmm.
in a negative way. It's painful and it's hurtful, and it keeps you in that space instead of that ability to like climb out of the hole. So like
Right. Yeah.
what I've learned, as much as I want out sometimes,
Hmm.
every time I'm like evaluating, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? There's someone that I talk to or that the foundation helps. And I'm like, this is why. Because this
Yeah.
person who, Renee Poche, she got arbitration for $4 million from last season of Love is Blind.
Wow.
And we were able to help her get attorneys. She said she wouldn't have known where to go. She said this on a reel with UCAN Foundation. She
Hmm.
wouldn't have known what to do without us.
Right.
Like imagine she's a veterinarian down in Texas.
Hmm.
Imagine, so I'm guessing she doesn't have $4 million sitting there. That's
Sit.
just
Yeah.
here,
Just kicking
yeah,
around.
here
Yeah.
to a production company, and
Yeah.
she would have had nowhere to go. And so, as hard as it is for me sometimes to stay in it and to hear the horror stories and to constantly be asked about it and then to be smeared in the media because there's some news organizations that are in the pockets of these production companies,
Hmm.
and ask myself, am I stuck? I ask myself that a lot. I am stuck in a lot
Hmm.
of ways. But the fact that I get those little reminders of how impactful this actually is, and knowing that this work, whether it's me or the baton is passed, that this is going to lead to change in an industry that is hurting people and damaging people without any accountability.
Hmm.
It's something that I never thought. Like it's more on brand for me for what that's worth.
Yeah. Yeah.
With my political activism background and growing up poor and low income and
Hmm.
moving around a lot and kind of having this this everybody should be treated equally mindset.
Hmm.
I always thought I would you know, be in politics or something. I never
Right.
thought
Yeah.
I'd be doing this.
I know.
So
Isn't it amazing when you're like,
it's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
Yeah,
Three
it's
years
totally
ago,
crazy.
you would have never thought you were going to be here.
I would have
Right.
never in a million years imagined that I would be on a reality TV show with the kind of person that I am.
Mm-hmm.
But it turns out they needed someone who was going to start something and say something. So
exactly.
yeah,
And
that's
thank goodness that you are, and like you said before, I know you said on my podcast, there's a reason why you were, like, because you were resistant to even going on.
I
And
tried to talk him out of it.
right. But like the fact that you did, and now maybe that, like, who would have started this? I know you said Bethany Frankel, and yourself, but I mean, it's basically you're the front runner here on trying to help these people out that have no
I think
voice.
it's all of us, right? It's all of
Yeah,
us speaking out
it's a
about it. It's
collective.
everyone who
Yeah.
has before. It's not about me. I will take the first step when no one else will do it. I think I said this, like, there's a
Yeah.
group project. I will end up the leader, but I won't raise my hand and say, make me the leader. But if
Right.
that's what needs
Gotcha.
to happen to get the project done, I'll
Hmm.
do it. Right.
Right. Yeah.
Like, somebody's got to do it.
You're the
Okay.
doer.
No one else is doing it. I guess that's going to be me again.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
thank goodness for that.
Well, I
And
appreciate you saying
yeah,
that.
no, and so what does, I want to know, like, what is have you had a favorite guest?
Oh my gosh.
I know that's hard because they're all so
Ooh.
good, but like, is there somebody that really
Yeah.
kind of took you, like, even just surprised you, or,
So I've had a couple that I like. I had so I'm like I said, in the news and politics.
hmm
I was I've met some pretty cool people, some pretty famous people.
yeah,
There I watched this show called Breaking Points on YouTube.
okay,
It's a independent news show. It's fully funded by listeners. And so one of the hosts, I've been following them since they started the show. They used to work at The Hill, which is a news outlet here and a publication. And his name's Sagar Enjeti, and he reached out to me on Instagram after the show. He's like, "Man, I loved you on the show, and I saw that you followed me,
hmm
or that you follow me, and I've been following him for ever."
yeah,
And he invited me on their show for a quick segment, and then I invited him on my podcast, and he came. And I really felt like when
ah,
when all the people I've met and all the
mhm.
famous people and all the other reality cast members, to me, that was one where I was like, wow, that's like someone I listen to every day, and that I like genuinely. We don't agree on much. He's a little more on the conservative populist side,
But that can
and
be fun. That's a fun conversation because
yeah,
you shouldn't be uncomfortable. Why can't you have different points of view? That's totally,
and
like,
that's
that
it.
we all do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I loved having him on. I felt that was like a real get for me.
Hmm.
There was also, I had a physical therapist on the Physio Fix that I had followed forever when I had back issues. And she was great. And then just there's some really cool guests that I've had. Like, I had a dating coach on, I had a
Okay.
neuroscientist on. Like,
Oh,
these
I
are
would
the
love
ones
to
where
hear
I'm like,
that. Yeah.
that's a good one. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a really good
I might
one.
have to get
Very
his name.
practical.
I don't know if
Yeah,
that would be
TJ Power.
possible. TJ
Yeah,
Power?
TJ
Okay.
Power. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to
Yeah.
look that up, or him
Uh,
up.
I'll sh-
Sorry.
yeah, I'll shoot him over to you. Very good
Okay.
stuff. And then I just had Callie Means on not that long ago, who's a former lobbyist turned activist
Hmm.
against big food and big pharma and how they influence the government and all the stuff that he learned and did too.
Right.
So he's a great, just a really really great guest. I was trying to get him for several months, and we finally
Hmm.
did it. So I have so many.
Yeah,
And
no,
then
it's hard
I've
it's a
had
hard question. Like, yeah, they're all good, and bring their
yeah,
own thing to the table, right?
exactly.
That's the other thing. I was listening to you and Todd is amazing. I just have to bring him up because that's kind of how I got to get in
Hmm.
touch with you. And you got your show. It's
Mental health headline hot takes.
Hot Takes. Thank you.
It's a weekly show on his podcast feed on my YouTube channel.
Hmm.
And yeah, we just each bring in a news story, a headline from the news world of mental health, and
Hmm.
then we talk about it.
Yeah, it's the last one was good. It was the Todd brought up about assisted suicide for
Yeah,
people suffering. Yeah, he's such a
yeah,
great guy. I know I keep saying
yeah.
that,
He
but he
is.
is. Yeah, he's
He's a good guy.
yeah. So no,
Yeah.
they're good. I like the kind of the way you guys. It's just like loose conversation about serious things. So it's good to
It's
watch
more
or to
makes it
listen.
more relatable.
It
Yeah. Well,
does,
thank you for
100%.
that. So, where can people find you on social media?
Thank you for asking again. They can find me on Instagram at Carrie On with Carrie _podcast or on Facebook at Carrie On with Carrie podcast. My show is on Amazon Music,
Mm.
Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and I just started YouTube. Anywhere else you can find me, that's right now, that's about it. I have my link tree attached to my Instagram. And yeah, you can give me an email too if you wanted to email me directly. If you ever are interested in being a guest and you have a story to tell, or you have a modality that you think is something somebody will get something from, you can email me at carryonwithcarriepodcast@outlook.com.
Outstanding. And we'll put all those links in the show notes. So thanks again, Carrie, for coming on and being vulnerable and sharing your experience. And I encourage everyone to check out your podcast as well. And we'll have to do this again sometime.
Oh, I would love that. And I'd love to have you back on my show too.
Are you going through life blind? This is Eyes Wide Open with Nick Thompson. On this podcast, we share knowledge and stories that build human connection while elevating stigmatized societal issues such as mental health, holistic wellness, culture, free speech, and more, all to ensure we show up in the world with our eyes wide open.